Hey guys, Bob from RetroRGB here, and I just got a RetroN HD. This is the 720p outputting console from Hyperkin that plays Nintendo cartridges. So I figure we'll do an unboxing and then test it out and see if this thing's worth buying. So it comes inside a plastic bag, which I guess is just to keep it straight, and a typical looking Hyperkin box with one of the beveled corners there. Not really sure why they do that. Maybe that's just their thing. But pop open the seals. Okay, here we go. So comes with a little manual, and as you can see, this thing is pretty small, but it actually looks like it's in pretty decent. Looks like a pretty decent piece of hardware. On the back, it has composite video as well as HDMI, and it's powered by a micro USB slot. And it even over here has a switch for 16:9 or 4:3, which is actually pretty cool. Other than the manual, it comes with a whole bunch of different cables. So the power cable, RCA cables, comes with an HDMI cable, and it comes with kind of an odd feeling D-pad, or an odd feeling controller. So just to zoom in on that, it came with this piece coming up. I guess I'll have to super glue that back down. But as you can see, the sides are beveled just like their their standard boxes, and it has these two kind of hump things in the back. So just by holding it, at first glance, it's actually kind of comfortable, but it definitely doesn't feel exactly like a NES controller. So, of course, as always, before I actually power this thing on, the first thing I want to do is open it up and check out the guts. So one thing that I noticed I didn't actually see before is that it actually has a PAL and Ntsc switch on the back, which is kind of cool. That's a good way of doing it. So let me just pop this off. The 4 rubber feet on the bottom just come right out. Well, this is pretty interesting. Let's see if I could unplug these to get better zooms. So this right here, it's just the PCBs for the power, reset, and controller inputs. That's exactly as expected. It looks like this glob top circle right here is the Nintendo on a chip. That's an entire Nintendo console all on one ASIC. It's most likely the same exact chip that's been around for over 10 years and in all the other crappy Hyperkin NESs. Well, let's get this thing apart even more and see what's underneath that. So that's it. There's pretty much nothing else under there except that the PAL Ntsc switch and just the traces. So let's take a look at that video chip. Here we can see the video ports and what looks to be the scaler chip that it's had the part number scratched off, as well as the power circuit. So hopefully the scaler does a good job, but I guess let's see. So one other thing before I put it back together, I just noticed that there's no screws holding the cartridge input in. So I thought that was kind of strange. I would assume that it would have come with screws there, but it seems to be pretty tight as is. But anyway, let's power this thing on. So first, let's take a look at Super Mario Bros. 3, because it's a game all of us should definitely know. The first thing that jumps out at me is how bad the colors look. And while capture cards do interpret colors a little bit differently than are actually seen on a flat screen, I tried a couple of different capture cards and it still looks pretty crappy. It does look a little bit better on my TV, but it's still not a great representation. And obviously part of that is because the NES color palette was originally composite video only, so you do have to kind of do some work in order to get it digital, but I still think they did a pretty bad job. Also, it looks pretty soft, so let's put this thing up next to the AVS and see how it compares. So here's the RetroN HD versus the AVS, both 720p outputting consoles. You could see immediately how much sharper the AVS is, and how much better the colors are, although the colors can be chosen on the AVS. You could select between a few different palettes, but that being said, you don't have that option at all on the RetroN HD. So overall, I'm pretty unimpressed with the video output as a whole. So let's take a listen to the audio outputs, and I'll do the RetroN HD first, and then the AVS afterwards, so you guys can get an example of what it sounds like. Wow, that audio was pretty bad. I know the second example was of a Famicom expansion audio game, and I do realize that that's not really going to work in most clone consoles, so no need to put hateful comments down below for me throwing that in there. I just wanted to show both as an example of what to expect, which is pretty bad results overall. Overall, I'm really disappointed with the console from head to toe. I realize that this was targeted to a market that just needs the cheapest solution to play NES games on an HD TV, but it's really insulting to people that love the NES, and especially knowing how much better it could have been. So I just want to go through a couple of the things that really bothered me about it, and I'll start with something that I probably should have fit in at the beginning of the review, but it won't work with an EverDrive at all. So I made sure it wasn't a power thing. I used the power adapter it came with, as well as a higher amperage one just to make sure, but it is completely not compatible with an EverDrive. So right there, now you're immediately limited to just the cartridges you own, and you know, I know a lot of people that are finicky about their rare stuff, and they would prefer to use ROM cards so they don't have to pull out their rare cartridges. So right off the bat, even as like a secondary gaming NES, this one's not that great. But also, the way it's actually built, you couldn't possibly get any cheaper than this. So, you know, you have the input board, and nothing wrong with this. Does exactly what it's supposed to do. It just gets you some buttons and some inputs. But, you know, then it goes to here, and I showed pictures before, but basically it's just a system on a chip, and then, you know, the PAL Ntsc Switch in back. Then it goes to ports and a power circuit, and then what looks to be, I can't confirm, but looks to be just the cheap upscaler with the part number scratched off. So based on how bad the picture looked, I'm going to guess that this is just upscaling composite video. Now, I don't have any proof. I didn't have time to trace everything out. I did send all the pictures I had to Voltar, who took a really long time. It took a couple hours to go through this with me to make sure I wasn't running my mouth for no reason. But it's my guess, so I'll take responsibility if I'm wrong, but it is my guess that this is just their standard Nintendo on a chip outputting composite video, which is being upscaled, and that's how you could split it off to having a composite out and an HDMI. So that's pretty much it. Overall, you can't get any cheaper than that. The controller it came with is really bad. I had problems when I was holding down the right D-pad. Sometimes Mario would stop running, and the right D-pad is like the most used button, and so many controllers get it wrong. Also, it kind of irked me that the sticker was peeling up. And, you know, as far as everything else goes, it's just, as a whole, it absolutely is just a low-quality, entry-level thing when you compare it to the other solutions out there. So I mentioned the AVS in the review just because it is the next cheapest, even though it's not cheap. Really, it's the next step up. There's nothing in between, and it just blows it away. I mean, everything about the AVS, from its high-quality output to the millions of options, and then you go to something like an Analogue NT Mini, which is just every option you could ever imagine for a NES. So this thing just can't hold up at all, and I really, really wish that Hyperkin would start approaching things from not just a quick cash grab so you could stick this in retro stores and hope a bunch of people buy it, but of actually putting a quality product out. And if they did things like don't include cables, don't include some piece of junk controller, and then just focus on a high quality console, I mean, the plastic tooling was great. They probably spent a ton of money on that. Just to see, you know, that case, that nice case being wasted for such crappy internals is really disappointing. So overall, I really wouldn't recommend it to anybody. Maybe, there's just maybe a small use case of people where you already have an RGB modded NES and an analog setup, so an RGB monitor or something like that, and you eventually want to start gaming on a flat screen, but you just need something to hold you off. Alright, fine, but remember, you could only play on original carts then. Or, you know, maybe if for whatever reason you only want to play the carts that you already own and you just don't care enough to get a better solution, but there's just so many other cheaper options. I mean, a Raspberry Pi kit, and yes, it's emulation, but it's going to be better in almost every way than this. So, as a whole, I'm just really disappointed. I'm especially disappointed that it appears that Hyperkin just recycled an old product and stuck a video scaler on there. I almost would have wished they'd stolen code again and put a better thing, just like they did with the RetroN 5. So I just don't really recommend this. It's disappointing in every level, and I can't understand why a couple people on YouTube are recommending it. You know, I certainly wouldn't accuse them of being paid off by Hyperkin or anything, but there's no reason to give this thing any positive reviews at all. So I know I'm hard on Hyperkin, but they just don't produce good stuff. So I would love to get one of them on for an interview. I doubt they would ever waste their time because I probably already could tell you what they're going to say. But overall, I hope you enjoyed the review. As always, comments and criticism down below are always greatly appreciated. Thank you to all my Patreons, which I couldn't do these videos without your support, so thank you very much. Thanks to Voltar for spending a couple hours on this with me, and I will see you guys next time.